So the big picture for this lesson is using distance to classify quadrilaterals. I'm just going to give you a tour of the lesson. What type of quadrilateral has these vertices? Well, that's the type of question you're going to be answering. It's an isosceles trapezoid. But here is how you do that. You plot the points on a graph, and then you see what you can do. So AD and BC are both horizontal, so they are parallel. And AB and DC are obviously not parallel, so that means you have a trapezoid. And if you use the distance formula, or use the Pythagorean theorem rather, to find the distance for each segment here, you can see that the distances are the same. That means you have an isosceles trapezoid because you have one pair of parallel sides and the non-parallel sides are congruent. So that's the type of work you're going to be doing in this lesson. And here's a review of using Pythagorean theorem to find distance. Now here are the distance relationships you need to know. Isosceles trapezoid, exactly one pair of opposite sides is parallel, diagonals are congruent. Non-parallel sides are congruent. That's another way of saying that. Parallelogram, both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Rectangle, parallelogram whose diagonals are congruent. So for a rectangle, you need to make it a parallelogram first, and then you do the diagonals. And if the diagonals are congruent, you have a rectangle. Rhombus, all four sides congruent. Square, all four sides are congruent, and diagonals are congruent. So the square is the most specific. It has to have all those properties. So basically, you're just going to be calculating the distance for various quadrilaterals, then using those distances to determine what type of quadrilateral you have. So here's an example of a rhombus. All the sides are the same length. In other words, the distances between the points are all the same. The diagonals are not the same, so it's not a square. And you can say, yeah, I can tell by looking. But you do need to verify using math as well. You don't just want to eyeball it. So that's the big picture for this lesson.